Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic Raptor release. We just had recently taken a look at the Utah Raptor. This time we are checking out the Achillobator, and this thing looks honestly equally as awesome as the Utah Raptor did. The sculpt on this looks excellent, the paint apps on this look excellent, and it is very strong competition to potentially dethrone that Utah Raptor as my favorite Beasts of the Mesozoic figure. Yet, we'll just have to wait and see. As far as the packaging goes, you can see the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo. You'll also notice that it doesn't say Raptor series, Tyrannosaur series, anything like that. Of course, not Tyrannosaur series, but that's because the Beasts of the Mesozoic moving forward, I think, are just basically just Beasts of the Mesozoic. There aren't any series anymore outside of like Cyberzoic and stuff like that. So this is just Beasts of the Mesozoic. It isn't associated with any, particular species line. You'll see the species name though at the bottom. Also the fact that this is 1/18th scale, and some fantastic artwork here to the right hand side. And then when we turn the box around, you've got a really nice shot of the figure here on the back of the box, as well as some information about the figure and the species, and then a few other, dinosaurs down here that are being promoted as far as different releases available currently from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So as far as what we have included, of course, we have the assembly instructions, and I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but this kind of stuff is always very important to read. We don't need to look at it or anything because we've looked, over these tons of times already, but something that's very important to read when you are getting your Beasts of the Mesozoic figure, especially if it's your first one. But you can see the card that is included is absolutely gorgeous, shows an incredible image of an Achillobator with a recent kill, so it looks like it's got itself a nice meal. You also have the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo down there, and then the back of the card shows a little dino toy photography with our Achillobator, and then some information on the species down here. So a very nice, very high quality card, also has a nice shine to it. So, pretty much your standard when it comes to the incredible quality you always receive with these Beasts of the Mesozoic releases. On top of that, we have, just like we had with the Utah Raptor, that clear stand, that kind of resembles the old stands we would usually have with the Raptor series, but this time it's clear. And then you also have that new updated stand as well. On top of that, you have alternate feet, again with different positioning for the toes. The toes are just kind of spread a little bit further apart on these feet, so you can swap the feet out that are on the Raptor currently for these ones. And then when it comes to our Achillobator itself, there it is in all of its glory, and just like with the Utah Raptor, honestly, it is one of those figures that when you first pull it out, it will pretty much leave you breathless. This thing is so beautiful and is some major competition for the Utah Raptor. I think I won't truly be able to judge until I see them both kind of standing here before me, but there is a strong chance that this Achillobator could dethrone that Utah Raptor as far as my favorite goes. But again, it looks absolutely as epic as it gets, so let's jump to a closer look at it and check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Achillobator, you can see it looks absolutely awesome, especially with the colors that are chosen for it. I feel like, it has that perfect look to it, very evil, honestly, and definitely the type of dinosaur I could see coming in and really messing your day up if you happen to encounter one. But you can see the skin texture here and the face looks great. It's very highly detailed. Tons and tons and tons of really fine detail throughout the course of the face, and you'll notice that there aren't any feathers on the head at all until you actually get down toward the upper part of the back, the lower part of the neck, basically moving into the shoulders. That's when you'll start to see feathering for this one. You can see the ears sculpted out, and in typical fashion of the Beasts of the Mesozoic, there is a ton of coloration here in the face, as you've got like orangish tones, you have black, you have off-whites, you've got grays. It's all applied really nicely. You've got like dry brushing techniques, it looks like washes and stuff, just adding up so much variation of color here to the face to make it look as extremely lifelike and realistic as it gets. The eyes are also painted pretty nicely, as you can see, kind of like a light brownish tone, and there's also a little bit of white in there on the bottom part of the eye, and then there's like a black ring around the eye and a black pupil, and there's also of course a nice gloss coat on top of that. I think the eyes are actually nicer on this than they were for the Utah Raptor. I definitely like the paintwork for the eyes. You can see the nostrils sculpted out right there, also highlighted with a darker tone, And again, the entire thing having that very vulture-like look is just so picture perfect in my opinion for this species. Of course, we've got an articulated jaw. The jaw, just like the Utah raptor, doesn't open super wide. As you can see, it doesn't go all that wide open. That's about as far open as it gets. And then as you leave it go, you can see it starts to kind of fall back into place. And that, of course, is something that is common with these figures when you first pull them out of the box. I don't know if that'll stop over time, but I guess as I mess around with it and loosen that jaw up, it should do the job. It should, loosen that up and stop that from happening. But you can see the inside of the mouth sports a nice pinkish tone, as well as a red wash in there. The teeth are all sculpted really nicely. If my camera would focus on it, there you go. You can see all sculpted individually, painted individually. Get a look here at the opposing side. Nice gloss coat, adding a nice genuine wet look in there as well. And then, of course, you can see everything on the inside of the mouth. On the upper side, looks fantastic. I can even see purplish tones added to the inside of the mouth. On the upper side, the teeth are all painted perfectly, sculpted individually. It's honestly a shame, I would say, that I can't get in there a little better to show you guys how nice that looks, because it looks really, really well done. And then as we close the mouth, you can see how it kind of pops open a little bit again. But like I said, that could just be because I haven't really worn it in yet. So as I do that, maybe that'll become a little bit smoother. As you move up here into the top of the head, you can see like a little bit of like extra skin moving along the top of the head, which looks really cool. Again, you've got the variations of oranges as well as grays and blacks that dry brushed over to really highlight the detail very nicely. Just like with the Utah raptor, you've got a spot of articulation right here, and then down here. You can't see this area because there's actually like a little floater right here, which you can see, a little extra floater of feathering right there as you move down. But the neck articulation is super smooth on this, just like it was with the Utah raptor. You can see the range of movement for this is really nice. Like, look at that movement in an upward position and even downward, something that a lot of the beasts of the Mesozoic figures, in my opinion, have had some issues with, is moving in a downward position. That actually works really nicely for the Achillobator, just like it did for the Utah raptor. So on top of having some of the best paint apps and honestly best sculpts in this entire line, I would say the raptors here, these two newest raptors, also have some of the best and smoothest articulation yet. As you continue to move down the course of the neck, you continue to see really nice sculpt work, really nice paint work, nice skin texture and everything throughout. As you move down, you can see, as I mentioned, that little floater area. If I pull it up, you can see what it looks like basically without it, and where the skin texture basically ends as we lead into the feathering of the dinosaur. But I really actually quite like this little area of feathering, just adding a little bit of extra feathers, something the Utah raptor didn't have. It's sculpted really nicely with nice wavy feathers throughout, which looks really cool. It's painted with a black and then dry brushed over with a gray, so it does have a little extra variation of color. And as you move back into the body, you're going to see the same thing as far as the paintwork goes, mostly up here on the back, but you can really see how they've highlighted all of the feathers here with the gray as you move along. As you move down to the side, the gray dry brushing isn't as obvious or abundant. It's mostly just a black down here, but you do get more of it as you move down into the lower part of the stomach and down into the underside of the dinosaur. One thing that you may notice is how similar the body looks on this one compared to the Utah raptor, and I think that's because they share the same sculpt from this point out. Like, I was just analyzing them a moment ago, taking a look at them together, and it looks like, for the most part, everything seems to be the same as far as the sculpt goes. It's just different paint apps. So as you move down into the arms, of course, you can see that we've got the blacks as well as like this nice little area of like an off-white or maybe even like a light gray. You've also got some more of that light gray dry brushing up here, highlighting all of the feather detail. Not quite as flashy as we saw on the Utah raptor, but definitely fitting the theme of this dinosaur and the coloration that's chosen for it. Of course, we have the same articulation as the other, as we have the shoulder articulation forward and back, also out away from the body a little bit. You've got the elbow articulation right there. Now I just messed that little floater up there, and then you've also got wrist articulation, again, forward and back. If you take a look at the underside, you can see the underside of the hand looks really nice as far as the sculpt and the paint. Again, you've got the nice orangish tones like we see up there in the face. The nails are painted with a black, and they also have a nice gloss coat to them. Also, again, a little bit of a gray dry brushing to highlight the detail of the nails, just like we actually saw on the Utah raptor. And then you can see the feather detail of the underside of the wings looks really nice as well. Moving back, you of course have the midsection articulation. This one right now is definitely a little stiff. The Utah raptor was a bit more looser. Oh, there we go. We're breaking it in now. So I say it was a little stiff at first, but now you can see how it goes up, down, left, right. You've got some pretty darn nice mobility with that. It can also kind of swivel a little bit. I'm sure that'll as well become smoother as I mess with it and of course pose it and everything. Moving back, you still see more of the black and again more of the light gray. Dry brushing, you can especially see it moving along the back of the thigh and down into the calf. Moving down into the foot, you see that we again return to the orangish tones, but we've also got lighter tones down here, which is a little bit different than what we see elsewhere on the figure. But you can see the foot sculpt looks really nice as well. Again, the nails painted just like they were up there on the hands. Articulation wise, moving down through the legs, you again have the hip articulation forward and back. You can also move it out away from the body just a little bit. You have the knee articulation, which is actually a little stiff right now, but you can see forward and back, and then it can also swivel. And then as you move down, you've got the usual, again, 2 more areas of articulation right here. It is a little bit stiff right now, forward and back, also can swivel. And then again, another spot right here. Can pretty much move all over the place. And you also have the articulation of the toe, which is actually really quite stiff, but I know it articulates because I saw it on the Utah Raptor, so I know it does. I might have to warm that joint up. I don't want to break it, but it definitely can. If you want to see a good example of that toe articulation, make sure you check out the Utah Raptor review. But then as you move out into the tail, you again have another spot right here. You've got up, down, left, right, all over the place. Can kind of swivel, but it sort of gets stuck because of the positioning and the shape of it. But you can see, again, we basically continue to have the black tones with the light gray dry brushing as we move out through the length of the tail. You see that through the entire rest of the tail. The tips of the feathers out here on the tail are definitely highlighted with that lighter gray a bit more intensely than we see elsewhere. You again also have this little area of articulation, which is pretty much the same as the others, and then a wire tail out here at the end to bend the tail pretty much any way you want. And you can see what it looks like as far as the underside. Again, mixtures of blacks and light grays throughout, all the way through our Achillobator. So wow, that thing is absolutely gorgeous. Just like the Utah Raptor, it is far and away one of the best and definitely one of my favorites to come from the beasts of the Mesozoic line so far. And just in case you are wondering, if you happen to have seen my Utah Raptor review and you're wondering if the Achillobator stands as nicely as the Utah Raptor does, it absolutely can stand on its own 2 feet. Of course, they're going to be a little bit wobbly. It's not super stable, but very much so evidence that it can stand. And I think if you put like one leg out in front of the other, it would actually be a lot more stable than it currently is. But it does stand pretty nicely overall. As far as the size goes, for a length, I'm thinking it's going to be pretty much the same as the Utah Raptor. You are looking at about 15.5 inches or about the 39 centimeter mark, maybe a little bit over 39 centimeters. And then for a height in the position it's in, it's about 5 inches or around the 12.5 centimeter range. I think it's actually positioned a little bit higher than the Utah Raptor was when I had given a measurement for the height on that one. So of course it's always dependent on how high up you pose it as far as, you know, what the height's going to be. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being next to our beasts of the Mesozoic Achillobator, and you can see it sports a very nice, very impressive size, just like we had seen on the Utah Raptor. And to show you that, there they are snout to snout as we have the Utah Raptor and Achillobator, and you can see that they are pretty much the exact same size. I can't really notice anything that would really differentiate them as far as the size goes. Lengthwise, body shape, and everything, like they all pretty much look like they're the same size. So I feel like we really don't need any more comparisons past this point, as we can very clearly see that it's the same size as the Utah Raptor, and we did quite a few comparisons with the Utah Raptor in that review. But honestly, looking at these two, again, I don't know that I can pick one over the other. I would, confidently say the Utah Raptor was my favorite prior to this review, but I feel like the Utah Raptor and Achillobator are pretty much in the same league as far as what my favorites would be, so I don't think I could honestly choose one over the other. They are both fantastic. So this brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic 1/18th scale super articulated Achillobator is absolutely as drop dead gorgeous as the Utah Raptor was, and honestly as drop dead gorgeous as a Beasts of the Mesozoic figure can get. The sculpt is spectacular, just like we saw in the Utah Raptor. They did a great job, and of course you're going to see it look very similar to the Utah Raptor because they do share some of the same body parts. parts, but obviously very different style head sculpt, as well as the feathering leading down there. As you get closer to the body, you see again that little floater area of feathering, which is a bit different compared to the Utah Raptor. But overall, again, it's just absolutely fantastic. I think the sculpt is very highly detailed and just extremely vibrant as far as the detail goes. On top of that, the paintwork is so nicely chosen for this one and also so nicely applied. Just like with the Utah Raptor, I would say it's one of my favorite painted beasts of the Mesozoic figures so far. It's just so realistic and lifelike and genuinely looks like the color I would expect to see on this dinosaur. And the colors chosen were so perfect. Like, you really couldn't have chosen better colors for this dinosaur than what they gave us. On top of all of that, of course, the articulation is fantastic. It is extremely smooth. There is a whole lot of range of movement with these new Raptors, and again, probably the best articulation and the smoothest articulation that we have seen on the beasts of the Mesozoic so far. On top of that, you also have the two different stands, which we went over in the Utah Raptor review, and then of course the alternate feet, so you can change the positioning of the toes and stuff. So overall, an absolute total package. On top of that, it's also an Achillobator, a species I did not have prior to this, so that is equally as awesome as everything else. So if you are interested in grabbing one for yourself, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that. I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to David Silva for allowing me to check this one and the Utah Raptor out a little bit early, as these are just about to begin shipping, and you should be able to get these in your hands very soon. So make sure you grab one through the link in the description, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.